Ron, I don't think we can hear you.
I can. Oh.
There's the mute button on the back.
Yeah.
Oh, one more time. Press it one more time. Now you should be good.
Now good? Okay. Okay. I'm getting an echo here. Okay, is everybody back? Isn't technology great? Okay, I'll call the meeting back to order. Paul, you were giving us the tail end of your presentation. I take it when things kind of froze up on us. So.
Yeah, just a little bit more, Mayor, members of the council. So I think I covered the gist of the request on the grading permit, and I can cover that and answer more questions on it if that comes up. Staff touched on a lot of the PUD benefits, the protection of the wooded areas, the wetlands. We're providing a lot of landscaping, the 4-acre park, about 1.8 miles of trails, and then we are really trying to provide some quality architecture and monumentation and hardscape, so it's built to last while still offering a great value, and that incorporates the monuments and the corner treatment as well. One thing I also kind of want to note is I've heard some comments on densities or why this product, or you know, how does this work with the density? Why do this? And one thing that I wanted to note is, you know, through a master plan PUD, a lot of times what you do is you calculate the density on the overall piece of land. So you factor in all the different housing types. And there's substantial improvements, and because the sentiment is that the developer pays their own way, there's some substantial infrastructure improvements, you know, that maybe the city has identified or wouldn't be able to fully fund. So the developer is able to kind of come in and assist with some of that and help out with some of the infrastructure needs that the city may have. And then there's also the park fees as well. So some of the benefits that are realized through a PUD master plan like this. So it allows us to come in and be able to kind of, in some cases, kind of help the city with some of the things that maybe the city needs for the future. So there aren't deficient pipes or roads or issues and breakdowns and things like that. And you know, not only our community, but some of the other areas outside as well. So I just wanted to kind of note that and speak to that a little bit. As we had noted, the timing is roughly an 8-year development schedule based on market. And we would like to be able to start grading later this year after all the reviews and approvals from pertinent agencies have been completed and obtained. So that's my brief overview, even briefer than Kendra's brief overview. And I know I covered a lot of ground there. She did as well, but I'm available to stand for any questions from anyone.
Okay. The way I'd like to proceed, folks, is if maybe we'll do general questions now, make sure we've got the overall topics nailed down, and then to kind of put to get to a final point, I'd like to go through resolution 2020-50 with the 58 conditions on there and take them sheet by sheet and hit the specific conditions and resolve them before we go on to the next sheet, so that we can get closure to any of the issues that are outstanding. So that's how I would like to proceed. And I think we can start out with just general stuff. One thing I had, Paul, on the grading, and it's not a big deal, I don't think, but your reason for wanting to do it obviously is to get in and be able to just get started. From staff standpoint, well, two questions. One is that something we have to have resolved tonight? And then the other question is, if we allow the grading ahead of time, I'm guessing we hesitate. We don't typically do that because the city then has exposure if the developer pulls out and the deal doesn't go forward. So how do we deal with those issues? I think Kendra probably. probably answers that, or whoever else.
Mayor and I can too had a conversation with Kevin Matson, and he can chime in as well. In our mind, there's just not enough details at this point. We feel that does not have to be approved tonight. We feel if Paul and his team come up and finish those details in a sufficient manner, we could bring that to you still in advance of final plat. So we believe that could happen at a later date. That you don't have to. You could punt on that tonight.
Sure. Okay.
We don't recommend that method. I think we would consider a pre-final plat approval maybe if there was significant details figured out that would be brought separately.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I guess that's the only general question I had. How about other council members? What do you have in general that you'd like to have questions on or get clarification? And we'll keep Paul involved in this, I think, as we go through the specific items, I think, just because it'll flow a lot better. So,
Are you going to go in an order of some kind?
for right now, yeah,
Yeah.
let's start with Anderson. Do you have any comments or questions?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yep.
Oh, okay. We haven't talked at all about price points. Can you tell us a little bit about what kind of prices these townhomes and 75-foot lots? Any hint as to how that's going to run?
Sure. You know, a lot of it is market driven.
Sure.
I believe the townhomes would start in the mid 300 range. The single family homes would be comparable to Ravinia in price point. I believe right now they're starting in the 4s, I believe. It's difficult to put an upper price range on things.
Sure.
I would anticipate that with some of the options and some of the features that people could add on, they could get, you know, higher than 500,000 or 600,000. But it kind of depends. It's we're trying to come in at a price point that is a little bit more affordable, and then kind of run the gamut up through the higher range depending on what people are looking for and how they want to customize their home.
Sure. Well, just those big broad numbers are very helpful. Thank you.
Anything else, Tom?
You know, no, I guess that when I looked at it, just to make a comment, that even with the smaller, with some kind of fudging, you know, smaller lot sizes, the density still comes up just barely at the bottom edge of our proposed density for this kind of development. And I think that means that, as I look at it, there is a fair amount of available space here. This is going to look pretty nice, a nice place to live, with the wetlands being right there, some good space around. We are, you know, the trees are, it's tough cutting them down. It's tough losing that. But the landscaping plan looks generally pretty good to me. So I think this is looking, I'm impressed so far. So yeah, I like it.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah.
John Bottom, are you on? I don't know, your video is not here. Okay, there you are. Your mute is on, John. Okay, there. Do you have any questions, observations, clarifications? You're muted, John.
I just want to clarify one thing. Sorry. I have 3 mute buttons. So on Del Webb, we did allow them to grade before final approval, if I remember right. And part of the reason there was because they wanted to start grading before winter, which we're pretty far from winter, but it's closer than we all think, I think. But so we have granted exceptions to that. And so Paul, to your question, I would be open to that.
Just
assuming,
can we clarify that, either Kendra or Kevin? I don't know if that is actually the case. Maybe Kevin, do you have a answer? Is that true?
I don't believe that's accurate. We do allow, or have allowed, like grading to start before they final the plat. So so after it comes back, after each edition comes back for final plat, we allow the approval to happen, then they can start grading before they record the plat. So that's the early start that we allow, and I believe that's what we allowed at Bellwether, if that makes sense.
We better double check on that.
Yeah.
Either way, I don't think we want to tonight. I have asked throughout this development, I've had a lot of conversations with Paul. I've had a lot of conversations with residents. So my lack of questions tonight are not because I'm not curious about it or don't care. I have went and just like I think all of us have, we spent an extraordinary amount of time pre this meeting trying to get a lot of this straightened out, and we've had a lot of back and forth. So I'm comfortable that I have had my questions that I had clarified along the way.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, John. Brian, do you have any questions or observations?
Yeah, I have a few comments. First off, John, you just said, you've got a lot of your stuff. I appreciate your input. So if you've gone through a lot of stuff, I can appreciate that when you share some of those conclusions that you've come to. From my perspective, there's things that I like about this. I like that you've got building in multiple school districts. I think it's important for us to start building out in the Rockford School District like you're doing. That's good for us as a city, good for the school district. And I like the multiple types of housing. Price point of mid threes doesn't really qualify in any sense for multiple workforce housing. I'd like to see something more in that lines, but at the same time, at least we're starting some multiple types of housing appealing to more than a single demographic. I like the value add for the sewer. I like what you've done already in response to some of the comments with the tree preservation, openness to additional landscaping, things like that. In general, though, in general, I personally wouldn't choose something like this, but again, this isn't my choice. This is the market that drives these types of things. But overall, when we're looking at a less dense feel in exchange for increased types of housing, I think that's not a bad deal. But there are some concerns. As we're going through some of these issues, I think we need to hold firm on some of them. And I know we're going to go through each one, so I'm not going to necessarily talk about each one individually, but there are some things about the 55% rule that I think are important to maintain. And reducing sizes on a lot of things like garages and the 25 feet around the community. I think a lot of those things need to be held firm. So if and whenever possible. Those are just my general comments, and we'll get into detail as we go. Oh, the other question I did have for you, Paul, when you were looking at the twin homes in particular, I know during the council meeting we talked about not only garage, driving straight into the garage, but having garages that didn't appear to be so much, forward facing, but they would be turn-in garages. Did you consider any of those models in order to preserve more of the 55% concept?
Are you saying like a side load where you kind of pull in and swing in?
Correct. Yeah, we mentioned that during the meeting, and that several of us went around and looked at different models that it has a very different feel in the community when that happens.
Yeah, we did consider those, but actually they've become increasingly less popular. And actually I don't even know if we build them anymore. We may have a community or two where we're finishing them up. I guess what I would say is, since we've had that discussion, I haven't entitled any of them. Okay. So we actually went with a redesign instead of trying to have the garage swing garages that we showed a year, 18 months ago, whenever that was.
Okay. That's all my comments for now.
Okay. Okay. Alan, you got any comments or questions? Your mute is on, Alan.
All right. I had a couple questions. One one I'm assuming was dictated by Hennepin County, but there's only one outlet on the 116. Was that the Hennepin County's choice? Can Kevin or Kendra talk to that?
That's this is Kevin. That is a preference of Hennepin County, and I believe also staff supported that that access reduction from the EAW.
Okay. So when I was a while back, we had a discussion with regards to the extension of 66th Avenue through to Horseshoe Trail, because that was originally designed as and I'm going to get this wrong, I'm sure it was a collector street, is that right? Or a corridor?
Collector Road, yeah.
Collector Road.
Yep.
So with the new Collector Road up through Street A and K and back down to L and back to Horseshoe Trail, is that road wider than any of the other standard streets within the development to deal with the increased cars and pedestrians on the road?
Yeah, let me just, I'll probably throw out the wrong things as well, Alan, but I think the staff did an analysis of that, of the need for the collector road going east to west, and they determined that there wasn't a need for a collector road, and that's why it's been changed at this time.
I'm just curious, because only having the access off of Horseshoe Trail and 66th, and if it's a narrower street, there's going to be a lot of traffic going through both those points. And I'm just thinking about pedestrian and whatnot, but.
Yeah, and I think the determination was that the traffic flow didn't have to go that way, and it wouldn't be a collector function.
Okay. And then can someone speak to the road improvements off-site? I'm just curious about, is there going to be any improvement at the intersection of Old Settlers and Horseshoe Trail because of the weird angle that those meet? If we're paving that, are we going to redesign that at that time, or?
I'll jump on that. This is Kevin again. We have some limitations there, so that would strictly be a shape and pave of that intersection. So there could be maybe some real minor things, but geometrically that intersection would stay as it is today.
Okay. Kendra, can you show on one of your maps what's actually trail versus what's street? It's hard to tell with black and white images.
Jessica has the show, but if she can pull it up, we can try to walk through it.
From what I could tell, it's primarily a trail that cuts north, south through the neighborhood from.
Yeah, while she's pulling it up, that's right. We worked with them to try to make that off-road regional trail an off-road trail the whole way. And some of the comments that we had at Parks Commission were related to that. And when it initially came in, that trail moved out to the road and moved back. And we really felt it was important that Lennar revise that. And so the trail kind of starts, it looks like she's not being able to pull it up, but it kind of starts on the west side of the project down on Hackamore, moves behind those houses, winds around some wetlands, and then comes up to the park, and then through the park, and I think it's up at Street K, it crosses over and then ends up on the north side behind the houses before it ultimately gets up to Bluebonnet. And so there's really not any areas where the trail is on the road, except where it's kind of crossing the road. And in those couple of places, we talked specifically about wanting to have trail crossings identified on those streets.
Okay.
So, yeah, it doesn't, you can kind of see it. It's maybe if you start at Bluebonnet, Jess, and follow that white line down, behind, down and behind those yellow houses, and then it crosses the street. It kind of runs along the street for this short portion. Nope.
Actually, Jess, so on the other side of Bluebonnet up there, so on the east side, you see there's if something goes behind those houses in the yellow, and then it crosses right there, correct?
Now it goes on the east side of that wetland and then back around the brown houses and then through the park somehow, and then behind the greenhouses, behind them, yep. And behind the greenhouses, kind of scoots through there.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's where the trail is off-road, and then each of the streets has a sidewalk on one side of the street.
Okay, but they're all sidewalk, right?
Yeah, on the street.
The extension to 116, is that trail along that, or is that sidewalk?
We were suggesting, because the sidewalks run through there, we had conditions that said add sidewalk connections out to the trail on 116 in the townhomes, and then up like where the orange and the green meet, sort of kind of up in that area.
Okay.
To read on that. At some point, there's the crossing to the open space park.
Yeah, I guess I was wondering about the extension of 66th out to 116. Like we're going to have on the opposite side of 116, there's actually probably going to be a trail that comes down to 116. Would there be actual trail from 116 into the neighborhood at that point? You know what I mean?
I believe the north side of what, I gotta pull up the plan. I believe the north side does. I'll jump in if you remember, but
Yeah, right in that area. There's no boulevard type in street in there either, is there?
there is no boulevard right
Okay.
now on that street,
Okay.
but I do believe it's a trail on one side.
Okay. So it'll mirror up so that people can just walk straight across, and they can walk over to the open space park in Ravinia if they want to so choose or whatnot.
Yes.
Okay.
That is true.
I'm trying to pull up my plans as well, and my PDF reader is being finicky.
It looks like there's a trail on there going on the
Okay.
north side of Gleason Extension.
That was my general questions. I mean, initially when I saw the plan, I was very hesitant about having townhomes in the corner where 116 and Hackamore meet. But I think if that can be landscaped to the point where when you come up 116, you don't see "Welcome to Corcoran" and here's a wall of vinyl. I'm more comfortable with it. I think Lennar did a really good job as compared to what I've seen from other developments, not only in our community, but other communities where they're not just slashing every tree and laying everything out. So that to that point, I think they did do a better job. You're never going to get to the rural character, which we all want in Corcoran in a mass development, but this probably does the best job we can given the space. So with that, I'll let my time go.
Okay,
And I
thanks,
can
Al.
confirm, Mr. Mayor, there is a trail on the north side of Horseshoe that will connect over to the new neighborhood park.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Yeah, there is a 10-foot bituminous trail. I just pulled mine up too.
My closing general remark would be I echo Brian's point about the diversity of housing in here, and the fact that we're getting some housing in the Rockford School District. I think that's a significant point, and I think it's a big benefit for the city, and it's certainly consistent with our strategic plan to get housing in Corcoran, or Rockford houses in Corcoran. Okay, now that we've got the general stuff, I guess what I would again suggest is that we go through resolution 2020-50 with the 58 conditions in there, and let's just take them one page at a time. And if people have specific items in there that they want to address, clarify, look for changes, or see if we have consensus on them or not before we then go on to the next page. So we can just kind of go through them. So we'll start out with page 1 of 19 and items, conditions 1 through 9. I'll give everybody a few minutes to see if they have anything that they'd like to talk about on those conditions.
Could you put those up?
Can you do that, Jessica?
I will
What
work
page
on
is
that.
it?
Give me just a moment.
What page is it in the packet?
I don't know, it's page 1 of 9 of resolution 2020-50. It's not numbered in the packet.
It's page 33 of the PDF, though.
Oh, okay. And for everyone's who doesn't have the packet, for your information, you know, there's a lot of conditions in here that are just, they're more technical and really have nothing to do with policy and that sort of thing. So we almost certainly are not going to go through every item here and try and address them. We're just going to look at the ones that have policy issues that people want to discuss, which may not be any of them for that matter. We may have gone through everything.
I think it's actually page 171 of 449 or something like that. So you can get an idea of how much we have to read on any given week.
How many
Oh, you're
trees?
right. I'm only looking at the Tavera packet, not the whole council packet. My bad.
This is we killed a lot of trees to get this information out. Are you be able to get that up, Jessica?
I'm working on it. It has about 40 seconds left to download. If you give me just a moment, I'll have it up.
Back to
Most of the trees that they used to print these were harvested on the other side of 116 from this development.
There you go.
If anybody's paying attention.
Yeah, on the south. Okay, before we put it up there, is there any? Council members each have these in front of them. Are there any items on that first of items 1 through 9 that you want to get discussing?
No.
No, not for me.
I'm not going to pull everybody on this, so just speak up if you have something. So, okay, then let's go to page 2 through 9, which is items 10, 11, and 12. Conditions 10, 11, and 12.
I think 10 was under discussion where we talked about the rear setback.
Right.
30 feet with 20 feet on decks and patios.
Right.
I guess I would suggest we limit that to certain areas within the development.
Okay, staff is recommending
So the resolution as written does require a 30-foot rear yard setback for all single-family homes and villa lots and twin homes, and then allows a reduction to 20 feet for decks and patios. So if we want to only allow that where it's adjacent to common open space, you would need, or something else, you'd need to modify that.
Okay, I guess my opinion on it is that I would limit it only when it abuts to houses that are not in this development. I don't know where everyone else is at on that, but
I'm fine with that.
Say that
I
again.
don't know
Ron.
why we wouldn't have that consistent throughout the thing. I mean, again, we're talking about, I see your point, Mr. Mayor, about they know what they're buying when they get into it, but to John's point, people can add on afterwards, and then all of a sudden you've got this, lack of backyard feel as a result of that.
but that's true of a lot of different things, and it's one
It
thing
is.
when you bring a development into a neighborhood and infringe on existing people, but when it's in that neighborhood and the conditions are available for people to look at, I agree. I mean, they shouldn't have to read the fine print in order to find it, but they're I don't know how much policing I don't feel I need to do that much policing on it, but that's an opinion, obviously.
Yeah, I would much prefer to have it anytime it backs up to another parcel that it would not be reduced. I'm fine with the open space.
What's the code say? Now.
Code is no reduction for decks or patios.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, can I ask a question?
Certainly.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I'm hearing you correctly, I'm just giving this as an example, but like for the northern, say, 10 home sites, lots 491 through 501, just using that as an example, are you saying that the buyers of those home sites wouldn't be allowed to put an additional deck or patio if it encroached into the 30-foot rear setback? Is that what you're saying?
Correct, yeah.
So I'm not trying to be confrontational or disrespectful.
No,
or anything.
Yep.
If I could offer 2 points, I guess. Number one, it would become something additional for staff and us to track, which becomes a little bit problematic, or could, I guess. And if we're having to put in additional landscaping for privacy purposes, do we still need to restrict someone's ability to add on an exterior structure? I mean, the whole point of requesting this is for decks and patios as an accessory structure, as an ancillary structure, not for an enclosed addition onto the back of the home, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
So that's what I'm trying to get at. We would rather not have to tell new buyers that they're not able to add on a deck or a patio. Obviously, we would conform to the principal structure setback of 30 feet, but the intention was, like on those lots especially, those are about 150 feet deep. So by the time you put the 25-foot setback plus even if it's a deeper home, say 65 feet, you still have 40 or 50 feet in the rear yard if somebody wanted to do that. So we tried to accommodate deeper lots up there, but also screening, because that's something that we heard from the concept plan in the initial reviews and staff recommendations as well. So from our perspective, it would be great if we didn't have to limit what somebody can do in terms of outdoor living space, if that makes sense.
And staff's recommendation was to allow that to go within 20 feet of the property line, right?
Correct.
Well, we didn't object to their proposal, so yes. I would note one other thing for the council. The applicant is asking for, showing a 25-foot front yard setback. The code only requires 20. They're asking for 25. They could reduce it down to 20 and provide some flexibility in the rear yard as well. Is another way to provide more space in the backyard. And sometimes not every house pad fits on every lot either. So I don't disagree with the idea of, it does make it more challenging to manage which lots are eligible, but we do it with Ravinia for some of the design pieces. So I think we could manage to track which ones are allowed to encroach.
Yeah, I personally don't have a good feel for what this even means from a practical standpoint. What's a typical city? What other cities do for the rear yard setback for decks and patios? I mean, is there a typical, and are we being more strict or less strict? Or
I would say most cities, in my experience, do not allow the encroachment, but it is becoming more common as lots become smaller. I think cities are sometimes allowing accurate encroachments into rear yards. If people choose not to use their rear yard as open space, and the way we live now, many people don't. Yep. I am seeing this more often, but it's still not common in my mind.
You're also seeing people putting 3-season porches on the back of the house and then not putting a deck on the back end of that, but putting it on the side to give them more privacy.
Yep.
So they can still add it. It's just they're not allowed to encroach into that 20 feet going out the back.
Yeah, we have.
And we're gonna have to track it no matter what. If somebody pulls a permit to do a deck, we're gonna have to look at what the setback is in each one anyway, whether it's 20 or 30.
Yeah, I guess it's not a hill I want to die on. I'm okay with it being 20 feet on all of them, but we need to have a consensus on the council, I guess.
I'd prefer it be longer where those existing neighborhoods are. After that, I'm not concerned.
Okay.
I think we asked for significant plantings where the new lots abut existing homes. And I think that should do a pretty nice job of keeping the existing homeowners from feeling like they've just been invaded by the new development. So I'm happy to leave it as it is at this point.
Leaving it as it is means that
As
you are fine.
the resolution states.
Allowing 20 feet.
Yeah.
Okay. John, where are you at on that? Let's find out what a consensus
On
is.
existing,
Yeah,
I'm fine with,
20 feet.
so long as they exist, the up against the old neighborhood has a little bit bigger buffer.
Okay.
So you want the 30.
We're in the old neighborhood only. I don't
So
care
if-
what they do inside this neighborhood, other than how it impacts the people
Okay.
next door.
So you're saying for where it butts up to existing houses, it would be a 30-foot rear yard setback, and then the rest could be 20-foot for decks and patios?
Yeah, yeah. So keep it at code for the people, and then give the flexibility on the 20 on the new neighborhood.
Okay.
Is that not clear?
I think that, just for clarification, if I understand what you're proposing, that affects 21 lots that abut
Okay.
in lots.
Okay. So where we have consensus is to allow the 20 feet for all internal lots, and it has to be 30 feet for decks and patios if it's abutting existing houses.
But existing needs to be defined. So like existing doesn't mean a house that was built last week. You know, if someone built one first and they said, hey, I was here first and built my house last week, you know,
Yeah.
we got to refine the definition of existing.
Mayor Council, I think Kendra, we could probably just name the lots, correct? Would be
I
impacted.
think we could list the lots. I mean, I could repeat them to you, or I could just write them in the resolution for now.
Right, it'd be 490 through 501 and
I think we're clear on
220,
which ones.
6, 7, and 8. Yeah,
Yep.
just a
and
few. Okay,
And then 380 plus 375 to 380.
There's some on Trail Lane too. Coming butts up the Trail Lane neighborhood.
Those are the 375 to 380 lots.
Okay.
yeah. Okay, we have what we need there. Anything else on page 2, items 11 and 12? Okay, hearing none, we'll go on to items, page 3 of 9, items 13 through 21.
I think items 18 is probably the one that's going to be that I would like to discuss some more.
Okay,
So this is where I was asking how does this compare to Ravinia? I don't know. Do we give up to 75% in Ravinia any lot? Some of these exchange for flexibility. I mean, colors. To me, that's not a big thing to dive flexibility on.
The point that we've talked about on this, to your point, Alan, is we don't want to see a door next to a garage and everything going behind it. And,
Right.
you know, and so most of the models that were shown don't do that. They have additional windows and they have additional structures to them, which I was okay with. I'm fine with even the garage forward when it does meet the 55%, because then you've got so much more variety to the home. But we have to be aware of what it looks like. I mean, especially when you hit that 75% range, what is that going to look like?
Do we know, was anything built like that in Ravinia that we can have a comparison to?
We just didn't track requiring measurements because we allowed them to exceed it. Paul, I mean, you put in your materials that some of these garages would be 75% of the face. Do you have any information about Ravinia?
I don't know that we hit 75%. I believe I had pulled 75% from a 4-car product, which we didn't
have in Ravinia.
Yeah, which we don't have in Ravinia.
There's a few 4-car homes in Ravinia.
Then they must not be garage forward, if that's
No,
the
not
case.
garage forward, no, but
Right. So that's what we're trying to work through. So yeah, so it was probably one of the floor plans that I had looked at. It would have to be a 4-car product, so that we're back to the 50. If it's 55 or more, then it can't be garage forward type thing. I would note too, the items A, B, and C. Well, A and B. I pulled those from we had met on architecture back in 2015 with staff and our designers to get a clear understanding of how the conditions in Ravinia were going to be implemented. And so those are the things that I proposed, was essentially a lot of the same architectural features, colors, materials, accents as Ravinia, but trying to get a little bit more flexibility on the ability to do garage forward, because a good amount of our homes now have the garages out front, where they didn't back in 2013 when Ravinia was approved. So that's what I'm ultimately trying to figure out.
I think A was ultimately designed so we wouldn't have white garage doors, flat panel garage doors on every garage. I guess the only thing I'm really uncomfortable with it is it says you're allowed to exceed, but it doesn't have a maximum number. So is exceeding mean you can have 98% of the house face garage? What is,
Well, we didn't have a maximum in Ravinia's approvals either, and I think we've generally stayed in that. I mean, they're relatively balanced faces. That's the only thing I could say. We didn't have a max in Ravinia either.
Okay.
That helps, but.
And if it helps, I don't foresee our designers putting a home in that's 98% garage face, because
no, I wouldn't expect
that's
Who wants it? Yeah.
we want to make sure that our homes look nice from the curb, and that people want to buy them. I mean, even with a garage, a more prominent garage, there's still I've seen some of the stuff from other regions of Lennar throughout the country, and there's still accents on the front, and it's more of a bungalow style, maybe with the home above it. So it's not just a blank door, if that makes sense. So we're just trying to build in flexibility, because I know that became a pretty common discussion topic in Ravinia.
Okay. Any further discussion, requests for changes?
Well,
Anything else on this?
Yeah, number 19, I don't see any reason why we would want to reduce that. I was just talking earlier, we've got a 22-foot garage in this house that we're going to, and I was at today, and we can barely fit my truck and van in there, and I'm just going, how do we have a 2-car garage less than this? Unless you've got a Yugo and a Fiat, you're doing pretty good. So I like our standards the way they are. Why do we need to reduce them, I guess, is my question to Paul.
Well,
So sure, so I can speak to that a little bit. So with the townhomes that we're proposing, I believe this is primarily on the townhomes. Kendra, is that correct?
Correct. This is a townhome condition.
It's a home condition. So with the townhomes that we build, I guess they're designed to serve the market, and the lot size or the garage sizes currently don't meet the code as it's written. And part of that is because of the way they're designed, and we're asking for flexibility on it, so we don't have to redesign the entire garage or do a structural redraw of the whole thing. What I would say is that our garages are adequately sized to fit 2 mid-sized vehicles with some storage. If you have a huge truck, that could be an issue. But we've had this conversation before, and generally with the demographic that's targeted in the townhome areas, they have a car, maybe a mid-size or a compact SUV. And typically we don't hear a lot of issues about the garage sizes. The other thing to note is that with a townhome, they're association maintained. So there's not a lot of, generally the people that live in the townhomes don't have a lot of tools. The landscaping and snow removal is included, so they don't have a lot of yard equipment. They don't have a snow blower. And so it's typically not an issue. The other thing is with the townhomes, because they are targeted towards a younger demographic, a lot of times they don't have toys. So they don't need the extra stalls for equipment or additional cars or what have you. So the primary reason is because we believe that our garages are designed to perform well. Our customers like them. We've sold them before with these sizes and they seem to go over fine. And so we're requesting flexibility from the current ordinance to tailor the product that we build in today's marketplace.
Well, if my memory serves me right, instead of 440 square feet, you're looking at 436, and the width of 19 feet instead of 20 feet. Is that? I mean, this isn't a huge variation from the standard.
Yeah, if the size is 440, the minimum would be 420, and I think in these townhomes, they're around on the low end. They're between 425 and 430, something like that. So,
yeah.
The thought was, in case there's a tweak to the architecture or something changes, we could go a little bit below that. So that's why we're requesting it. Is that's what the garages are, and that's how they're designed to fit those types of vehicles for that particular buyer. Can I just ask a question? I'm kind of thinking on my feet here, but we do have a townhome variety that's not proposed here, but has an even smaller garage that, again, serves the market just fine. And I'm just curious, without getting too far off the topic, if we were to come in with that type of a product with smaller garages than 420, would that be something that the council would not be happy with or be frustrated by? Or I'm just thinking of like other products that we offer as well that are comparable to these, where the garages are smaller.
I can only speaking for myself. I can only say that I wouldn't have heartburn over it, but
okay,
you folks know what people need and what they buy. We don't, our goal is to make sure that people can accommodate their toys and that sort of thing. And if you're especially in an HOA environment, they're gonna police them pretty strictly. So I don't.
That's true. Yeah,
Well,
we do have provisions about additional vehicles and keeping things out of the driveway and that sort of thing. So
yeah, it's just.
I think there's some special problems with that, especially since we have very few places now where we seem to be allowing any sheds, which I still don't understand. I think that's kind of crazy myself. I think we should, because it cleans up the yard. Yeah, I struggle with we keep reducing everything. And why did we set these standards in the first place? So,
well,
but this is my last meeting, so I guess.
Well, to Brian's point and a comment that Paul made the comment that they're selling these units. But my question is, what's the resale going to be on these units in the future? And will people continue to want them when they go up for resale? And at that point, if they're not going to be wanted, they're going to push the values of these homes down. Which we don't have any say over it, but I gotta imagine the resale on a smaller garage versus a larger garage is going to be a lot less.
I don't know.
I don't, I'd rather see less garage. Just, you know, there's nothing to me. When you look at a house, I've never driven to a house and say, boy, this house would sure look a lot nicer with a huger garage. I'm not going to live back there. And you make them 6 feet across. I don't care.
Yeah.
We don't need to worry about resale value. If I don't think the 1 foot will make them crappy. And most people, there are all kinds of codes to have garage footprints be smaller in our whole town.
Yeah. Yeah, we want less garage phase, but yeah, we want larger garages. And I think the city's vested interest in this is to make sure that people have places to put their things so they're not putting them in the driveway and storing them all over the place. And I think the neighborhood will police that. We don't have to do that through the code, in my opinion.
Well, the code, we already have a code for, you can't put 4 snowmobiles in your front yard.
Yeah, exactly.
If you need to put a motorhome in your driveway, you ought to go live somewhere where you can put a motorhome in your driveway.
Yep.
Well, but to Brian's point, we have a code that says 440 square feet for a reason, so people could have storage and not have their stuff out in their driveway. So
But again, to Paul's point, these are townhomes, and for one thing, so the chances are the people buying them don't need that big a garage, and they aren't demanding it. And the other point is that it's going to be policed by the HOAs and the associations. So I just don't see that this is a thing that, if they were asking for a 10-foot garage or something like that, then we might be looking at, or having a point. But I think 15 or 20 feet off of the square footage and a foot off of the doors, I think I just can't see dying for that, or
It's not about dying for it. I think it's about standing behind what we say. So
Well, that's what
we just keep creeping and creeping and creeping, and it just continues. And Lennar will take as much as they can get. It's just more money, and that's just the way it works.
Yep, that's why we have a PUD. But Lennar is also asking for to build products that sell, and if they sell, that's their. I just don't see us getting in and being worried about it myself.
Well, then we should change the standard. Then we should just.
Maybe we should for townhomes. These are our first townhomes. I mean, I don't.
That's my point, is that this just keeps happening with this product. So.
Well, it's
not for me to worry about.
It's an evolving world out there, so I think
Are we allow parking in front of townhomes, between the townhome and the street?
We would allow parking in the driveways, yes.
Okay. My only thought is when you decrease your garage size, you're more likely to push people to parking in front of their garage versus in their garage.
Yeah, our HOA guidelines, I believe, allow for parking in the driveway as long as the vehicle's operable, so it's not unsightly. It kind of depends on what the homeowner wants to do, but we try not to regulate that too heavily. Our garages are designed for some storage and to accommodate 2 vehicles as well.
Okay, why don't let's figure out what we have who's for and against item 19. I'm okay with item 19 as it is. Yeah, Tom Anderson, how are you?
I'm okay with it as it is also.
Okay, John Bodema?
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
Brian?
I am not okay with it.
Okay, and Alan?
Not.
Okay, so we have 3 for it, 3 are for it, and 2 are against it. So let's move on. We're not going to get it resolved any further. Anything else on?
Mr. Mayor, just for some context, I know this is probably abnormal, but I have a 20 by 20 garage, so 400 square feet, and I have 2 cars, a snow blower, lawnmower, 2 kayaks. It's tight, but I get it done. So
Yep.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other items on this sheet through items 21?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, did we get a final okay on how number 18 is written with the 55% rule?
That's my understanding is that that's left as it is, yes.
Be left as it is, so there's not any room for flexibility for garage forward if it's triggering 55%. I just want to just be clear.
I would suggest if you want that to come forward later and try and get it. I think where the council's at is right now is 18 stands as it's written.
Okay.
I think the garage forward is another issue that has to be resolved, right? Or has to be looked at separately.
Well, it's kind of triggered based on the 55%, I think.
Yeah, Kendra, why don't you go through that one?
So just to be clear, garage forward homes are permitted in our ordinance. You can do them all day long as
Yep.
the percentage of garage doesn't exceed 55%. They have many units that exceed that. And so we recommended and Planning Commission recommended that when they exceed 55%, they cannot be garage forward, meaning it can't extend in front of the home. And for the purposes of this, we count the front porch as the home. And so that's the condition is you can do garage forward as long as it's 55% of the face or less. You can do that in this project. But if you have 56%, then you need a product that is not garage forward as drafted.
Okay,
So yeah.
Let's move on here. We're going to be here all night if we don't get, I mean, which is fine if we have productive things, but we're just rehashing it. So anything else through item 21?
So item 20, I do have a point of discussion on, and that I just want the council to be concerned here in that, I don't know if this is tied right into this or not, but with the rear of the townhomes is not required to have any decorative elements. Is that correct, Kendra?
That is correct.
And so when we have those those townhomes being the entry point right off 116, the front of the townhomes aren't what people see from 116. I think that that's something that should be considered by the council if we're going to start townhomes, because to Alan's point, you are going to see a bunch of vinyl because it's the backside of the townhome.
Yeah,
So
we
I
have.
think
Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say we have requirements for single-family homes that abut roads like that, correct? But it has to be broken up.
Right. The townhome standards are different. They're in the staff report. And the issue that this is about is it says on the exterior building finish, a variation in building materials needs to be distributed throughout the building facades and coordinated into an architecturally balanced appearance. Additionally, they need to comply with the following: a minimum of 25% of the combined area of all building facades shall have an exterior finish of brick, stone, or stucco. And then it goes on to say, and then no single building facade shall have more than 75% of one type of exterior finish. And that's the flexibility that they're asking for. So what they're proposing is front, and I don't know if that elevation, if you have the townhome elevation, it's got a wainscoting on the front, which results in about 6% of the front face. And then 25% is proposed on the side, which is a fair amount of the side, but then nothing on the rear. You certainly could modify that, but that's as it is drafted. And I specifically wrote that, Councilmember Dejewski, to be clear so you understood what it is that they were requesting.
Yeah, I don't have as much problem with A in this, in that there are times when the townhome, it won't serve itself well, or it's hard to do that. I am more concerned with how this will appear as an entry and gateway to Corcoran from the rear.
So if I might provide a little insight, the only area where we have townhomes butting right up to either Hackamore or 116 are down in the corner. And as shown in that perspective, there's a lot of landscaping there. It almost blocks the townhomes completely. As you're coming south on 116, most of those townhomes are oriented in a manner where they're at a 45 degree. And I'd say even the northern, Kendra, would you be able to put up that illustrative? Maybe I can speak to it a little bit.
Maybe Jess.
Or Jess, yeah, thank you. So it's a little difficult to see, but if you're driving south on 116, you have a pretty good tree buffer and a wetland on the northern portion that kind of screens that northern cul-de-sac of townhomes as you're coming south. And then as you come further south, the only areas where townhomes are directly right up against 116 or Hackamore are right on the corner. And we have a pretty significant tree screen there. As shown in the perspective, actually, you can barely see those townhomes. The other thing that I would note, I sent this information just yesterday, but we do incorporate some gables, a little bit of facade articulation, and some window trim on the back as well, in the way that those are designed. So,
Paul, can I share that with the council?
What's that?
That image, can I share those photos?
I suppose.
Jess, can you give me the control and I'll, because I think it's fair to understand what it will look like. There is some articulation in the back, but there is no stone. So.
And the other thing is we have pretty strict controls on our high standards on setbacks from the main arterial roads. So I mean, it's 100 foot without a lot of extra landscaping, and they're doing a lot of extra landscaping to accommodate that. So it's not like they're going to be sitting on the road like a lot of places might be.
So we do show the stone wrapped all the way to the edge, but no stone on the rears. But on the rears, as you can see, we have window trim, some facade articulation, couple of gables, and some grids as well. And all of that is going to be behind a fairly significant tree line at that corner. If you go back to the perspective, you can kind of see how Pioneer did that. Once those trees mature, it's going to be pretty well screened. And the first thing you're going to see is welcome to Corcoran with a nice landscape buffer behind it. At least that's the vision for the corner.
I appreciate that perspective.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the elevation will change like that image there on the backside.
Yeah, sorry, I just stopped sharing it. Hold on, let me pull it back up.
Yeah, so you anticipate a change in the rear elevation, the look of it with the divider, something to that effect, similar?
Yeah, that's one of our standard, paneled color packages.
Yeah, okay. I think the higher makes more sense than having anything low on the ground, because like you said, you're going to have it
Right.
treed on the bottom. You'd never see it on the bottom anyway, but the top, I'm fine with it.
Yep. Okay, anything else
Certainly stay focused as this moves to final from the council perspective.
Okay. Anything else on that sheet through 21? Okay, on to items 22 through 33. One note that I would say is on item 29, it says setback along County Road 101. It should be 116, I think.
Correct, I'll make that change.
What is that reduced setback?
Mr. Mayor, council members, that's that standard. We have 100-foot setback along county roads, but by right, you're allowed to reduce it to 60 feet if you add additional landscaping.
Okay.
So it's actually probably not technically PUD flexibility, but I want to be clear that it's 100-foot setback that's allowed to be reduced in those areas, because they don't ask for it along the whole length, but there are some areas where they're asking for that reduced setback.
Okay, any items on this page?
I have a question, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Is there a strong sentiment among the council that landscape islands should be included, required? What's the council's thought on that? We include 2. It was something that was brought up at the commission. So I just wanted to hear kind of what the thoughts are there.
What do you
No,
call
That's
this?
item 54.
Right.
I'm sorry, what?
We're not
That's
there.
item 54. You're getting ahead of yourself.
I was looking at 28A. It's pertaining to HOA maintenance, but it infers that there will be landscape islands, I guess. So
You're showing 2. So that'll
Okay.
stay regardless for the 2 you're showing, but we'll get to the other ones at
Yeah.
50.
If they
okay,
don't exist, you don't have to worry about that one, Paul.
fair enough.
Well, yeah, okay. Okay, so moving on to items 34 through 43 on page 5 of 9 on this resolution.
Well, 33C is also, I think it's important to discuss that a
Okay.
little bit, the gateway
Okay.
sign.
Yep.
I love the idea. I think it's a good idea. I'm not thrilled about the one that was presented, but I like the concept and I would love to see that be a significant sign. I like it.
Yeah. And I assume we'll address the specifics of that when
Yep.
we get further along. So, but I agree, Brian. I think that's a good opportunity to have something really nice there. So,
We can work through that at final design.
Personally, for me, I think it depends on the sign and depends on the development. If the development turns out to be something we're proud of, I'm happy to have a sign there that says "Welcome to Corcoran." If the development turns out to be something that we regret, then you might see my truck tearing that sign down.
yeah, it's gonna be nice, Alan.
Okay.
I have a comment on that, just as a general thing. I asked Brad if I could have this be an entire a separated segment, but I get a lot of emails and calls that say, this doesn't fit what people should see when they enter Corcoran. We want the Corcoran entrance to be differentiated. We want it to be nice. We want it to be very welcoming. And I will say, I have no idea what that looks like. I don't have that skill set. I want to hear the front of the entrance to Corcoran should look like this and have a picture of it. Somebody who says everybody knows what it shouldn't look like. I need to see what it should look like because, and the sign is just another example because we've had a lot of people with respect to this development and every other one that happens on the border. Somebody needs to, if they're complaining about it, they have to have an alternative with a picture because I don't know what it should look like, but I'd welcome other ideas or thoughts about it.
Yeah, well, I agree with you, John. I think that should either be the people who are complaining about it, or the council should set that as a priority and have somebody come up with a concept for us that we can approve. But yeah. Future discussions. Okay, items 34 through item 43. Any comments or discussion?
I think item 35 is the directions on each of those need to be restated. Like item A, west of lots 490 through 501 shouldn't that read north of lots 490 and 501? And then
I believe
sorry.
the intention was carry that tree line over.
Yeah, I think it's just somebody carried it down and they all say west. And I think there's another one. I think one of them should be east of one of those sets of lots where it says west.
A should be north and B should be south.
Okay.
Was item 40, was that one of the items that Kendra talked about? The trails and the 5-foot buffer setbacks?
Yes.
Yeah, and I think there
And
was going to be some accommodations for that possibly, but that doesn't have to get resolved here either.
What I would recommend is we keep this condition, and that if they cannot physically comply, that when the PUD final plan comes back, we bring that
Right.
back as a modification to this condition.
Yep.
Got it.
think that's the best way because they haven't fully vetted that yet. But I wanted to bring it up because I think it's probably, if they can't physically make it work, it's probably the right thing to do to reduce it.
Yep. Okay. Anything else on this page? Okay, on the next page, item 44 through 54.
We will get street names.
Sure. And we'll all laugh at them and ridicule them. So
So we'll go ahead and submit, and then you guys can all tell me. You can all tell me how much you don't like them, and then I'll have to change them. And then
exactly.
Like they can't all be Paul T. Street.
Yeah. Yeah.
one of these days, we're just going to name them after. We're just going to start naming off last names of each division associate.
There you go. Good luck on getting that through.
Yeah, I'm kidding. I don't think that.
Item 54.
Right.
I'm actually in favor of pulling item 54. After riding with Public Works, snow plowing and plowing cul-de-sacs and seeing the pain they go through to plow around cul-de-sacs, and then having to buy a snow plow that will fit in cul-de-sacs, I don't want to really spend the additional money to buy more equipment to plow cul-de-sacs and pay additional labor to actually plow those areas. While they do look nice, I've seen them in Ravinia. I've also seen where people park on the inside of the cul-de-sacs because they're not allowed to park on the outside, and you can't get around them. So that makes me wonder, do we have a public safety issue with cul-de-sacs as well? So I'd actually be in favor of not having landscape cul-de-sacs for the sake of saving Public Works and saving ourselves some funds in the future.
Mayor and Council, would you like Kevin to address the Public Works opinion on that?
Yeah.
Kevin, why don't you, because we've been talking about it quite a bit internally.
Thanks, Brad and Council. We were initially, when Ravinia came in, against cul-de-sac islands. Now we are more indifferent with them. We feel like we've adopted to them. So we utilize them for snow storage and whatnot. So our preference is probably more along the lines of either everyone should have islands or everyone shouldn't, so that we can kind of plan operationally and get used to where we put snow. So the bigger question to us is actually related to irrigation in cul-de-sacs, and whether we make sure that maintenance is a responsibility of the HOA clearly in any new development.
So there's two questions, whether you have cul-de-sac islands and then also whether you have them landscaped or not, right?
Correct. Yep.
Well, you can do landscape islands that are not irrigated. It's just, you have to be more sensitive to the plants that
Sure. Yeah.
the HOA still has to maintain them, which may require more manpower for them to hire if it's not irrigated.
I'm kind of indifferent about the whole thing.
I'm indifferent.
Not a big deal for me either.
Okay, so the issue, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I was going to say, if the council is indifferent, I'm wondering if we'd be able to remove it for the reasons that Councilor Schultz noted, but also it is additional cost to the HOA as well for maintenance. I would just throw that out there if that's a possibility, as long as we're talking about it.
It sounds to me like everybody's fine with that.
I'm fine with me. Yeah.
Want to make it so, Kendra?
We can delete 54 and then we'll probably come back to 28 then, and no, that'll still say, because we still have.
Yeah.
We can delete 54.
Okay. All right. On to page 7, which is items 55 through 55. Oh, I'm sorry, 55 through 60.
I have a question on 55G. The developer shall provide a concept plan for the neighborhood park plan for Outlot J. Wasn't the neighborhood park in Ravinia designed by the city of Corcoran?
It was.
Yep.
Yes.
So, Brad, do you want to take that one or you want me to?
I certainly can. So yes, it was, but it was nice in the concept to see that things worked. So for example, where the parking lot could be and how the other amenities could flow. And then it would certainly be up to the city of Corcoran to actually design it. But I think it's nice before we get to 2024, when we build the park, to know that it's going to work as we approve the development. So that's really the purpose for the concept now.
Oh, okay, it's just a concept then. All right. Thank you.
Anything else on that, on those items? Okay, I would assume then that we can move on to approving the resolutions, since we've had a chance to address all the issues. If that's not true, somebody better scream real loud.
I guess my only other question was, we still have the ability to add a trail along 116 at the cities, right? If we so choose.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'd like to speak to that a little bit. We're kind of still working through the trail details with our engineer. We want to be able to, we've definitely discussed incorporating a portion of the trail system as the Diamond Lake Trail. Paul Cherney at Pioneer is checking to make sure that we can do that. And I have a call into him to verify if we need to still dedicate space along 116 or not, or how that may work, as we're kind of looking at reconfiguring the trails internal to the neighborhood as well.
I'm assuming that there's a lot of work to be done on trails with the Diamond Lake issue and everything else. So I'm guessing we'll be getting more updates on that.
And they do have some different standards for design.
We take a 60-foot right away plus a 5-foot trail. So there is and will be room for a trail along 116 in the future, correct?
Correct.
Okay. That was my question. Regardless of what's done within the development, we still have the ability and would have room to do that if we so choose. Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Okay, I don't have my quick cheat sheet here, but I'm assuming the first resolution is 2020-48.
Mayor, I can
Oh.
put up the PowerPoint if you'd like.
That would be good.
As well
There we
as
go.
Kendra did send over the copy of the resolution that's been redlined. If you'd like to go through when we get to 2020-50, if you want to look through those changes.
Okay. I think there were few enough where maybe we don't have to, but we can, there's so few enough where we can probably do it as well. Okay, let's start out with resolution 2020-48, which is approving the comprehensive plan amendment for Tavera at the northwest corner of Hackamore Road, County Road 116. I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution as presented.
So moved, Anderson.
Second, Bottom.
Okay, any further discussion?
I just have one question. This is, are we on 48? I'm sorry. Never mind.
Okay. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Thomas, aye. Anderson,
Aye.
Bottom,
Aye.
Dejewski,
Aye.
and Schultz.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, I had ordinance resolution 2020-408, which is an ordinance rezoning from a to a PUD.
So moved, Dejewski.
Bottom, second.
Any discussion?
This is where I had my question. Just have a general question regarding number 5.
No, this is
49, correct?
no, this is 2020-408, which is amending the title.
Oh my God, sorry, I'm out of order.
Yeah,
Be patient.
it's
Remind me
rezoning
when
the.
we get to 49 that I'll just shut up until that
Okay,
point.
okay, that's coming up. This one is to rezone the project to a PUD. Okay, so any discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Thomas, aye. Anderson,
Aye.
Bodema,
Aye.
Dejewski,
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, now 2020-409, which is a summary, the authorization to do a summary ordinance.
So moved. Dejewski.
Second, Bodema.
Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Thomas, aye. Anderson,
Aye.
Bodema,
Aye.
Dejewski,
Aye.
and Schultz.
Aye.
Okay. Now we come to resolution 2020-49, which is, here it is. A resolution approving the findings of facts for rezoning for property located at the corner of Hackamore Road and County Road 116.
So moved, Bodema.
Second, Schultz.
Okay. Is there any discussion?
Now I have a question on number 5.
Yes.
Is this standard boilerplate language, or what do you mean when you say will not create excessive burdens on parks, schools, and streets? What do you mean by excessive burdens?
So this is the findings of fact for rezoning. These are the rezoning standards in the zoning ordinance. And so it is, in the sense, a repetition of what those standards are. And so it is not creating an excessive burden on streets, for example, because they're making street improvements to offset any increased traffic from this development.
But how do you define burdens on schools? I guess that's my question. I'm just thinking of Wayzata schools and the current population they have right now. I mean, they opened an elementary school, and before they even had one day of class, they sent a letter out that they were going to remodel and increase the footprint of the school because they couldn't meet capacity.
Well, when we say excessive burden, we meet, Brad, I shouldn't say we, but Brad meets regularly with the different school districts to update them. We share our comprehensive plan with them, and they do their school planning based on the land use density ranges in our plan. So we believe it's not an excessive burden because they've been planning for this land to develop in this time frame at a density of 3 to 5 units an acre.
Okay, so they're aware, and they would have raised any burdens per se.
You should have.
That's correct. I have probably twice a year meetings with Wayzata specifically just to talk through demographics.
Okay, thank you for just clarifying that for me.
Can I ask a clarifying point too? When it comes to streets, what is the definition? Because it's going to come up in the future for sure. Everything you do has an impact on the streets. What is the definition of the burden on the streets as it pertains to that?
Well, Kevin can probably go through this for the detail, but the feasibility studies really talk about the grade level, I think, of how successful the streets are designed for traffic flow. So for example, A, B, C, D, F. And the feasibility study requires design to maintain, I'm not sure if it's an A standard, but a high level of standard. Is that correct, Kevin?
Yeah, a serviceability standard. But I'm not sure if I'm following your question completely. I don't know if you
Does
could
it-
rephrase it.
Oh yeah, so 116 has a lot of traffic today.
Okay.
Obviously, more people are going to go out on 116. Who determines whether it's an excessive burden on 116? Is there a metric, or is it just?
I'm not sure of the metric, but I mean, in this specific case, 116 is a county road. Hennepin County would, at the EAW, disclose any concerns that they have, and then basically through their comment letters here, disclose any concerns that they have. So I think if we're not notified of that,
Fair enough.
Assume that they don't have an issue with it. So, and they are planned as, county roads are planned to carry traffic like this. This is not, atypical.
Fair enough. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, do we have a motion on this or did we get into
Yeah,
discussion?
it's vote time.
Okay, okay. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Thomas, aye. Anderson,
Aye.
Bodema,
Aye.
Dejewski,
Aye.
and Schultz.
Aye.
Okay. Okay, now resolution 2020-50, which is approving the preliminary PUD development plan for Tavarian property located northwest corner of Hackamore Road, County Road 116.
Mayor and councilors like Kendra just to walk through just verbally, just to make sure what she's written down makes sense for the changes.
Okay.
Kendra, just verbally just mention the numbers and the changes.
So the resolution, I believe the motion is resolution 2050 as modified with these changes. The first change is to modify condition number 10, the rear yard setback, to state that homes on lots 226 through 228, 375 through 380, and 490 through 501 shall be required to meet the 30-foot rear yard setback for structures, including patios and decks. So those are those three areas we talked about where it butts up against existing lots. The third change, second change, I'm sorry, was condition number 29 to correct my typo of County Road 101 to 116. And on 35, there was a correction on directions for A being north of lots 490 to 501 and B to be south of lots 376 to 388. The next edit is to delete condition 54 related to the cul-de-sacs. And those were the changes I had, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve resolution 2020-50 as modified.
So moved. Schultz.
Second, Bodema.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Thomas, aye. Anderson,
Aye.
Bodema,
Aye.
Dejewski,
Nay.
and Schultz.
Aye.
Awesome, thank you. And I think that's all for item 8B, right?
One more.
One more?
2051.
Oh, 51 is hiding on the back here. Printing on both sides of the paper.
That's a lot of paper.
Yes, it is. Okay. Okay, I'll now entertain a motion to approve resolution 2020-51, which is approving the preliminary plat for Tavarian property located at the northwest corner of Hackamore Road and County Road 116.
So moved. Schultz.
Second, Anderson.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Thomas, aye. Anderson,
Aye.
Bodema,
Aye.
Dejewski,
Nay.
and Schultz.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Now are we done? Is that all? Okay. All right. Well, good job. Thank you, Paul, for your input and Kendra for your help on wading through this.
Thank you,
No.
Mayor and Council, for your support. We're excited.
Great,
Good.
so are we. Thanks. It's a great project for the city. Okay, now we move on to unfinished business, which is item 9A, which is a Hackamore Road Improvement Project update. And at this point in time, we'll take public comment from anyone who wishes to log in. So if you let Jessica know, she'll put you on.
And that's specifically for item 9A, which is the Hackamore Road Improvement Project update, just a verbal update from Kevin.
Anyone interested can press either *9 on their phone, or they can use the raise hand function, and I can walk through that if anyone has questions. At this point, Mayor, we do not have anyone who's raised their hand. I could wait a moment if you'd like.
probably good. Kevin will give a brief verbal update.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you recall, Medina Council had a decision after we had made our decision at the last council meeting in relation to moving forward and accepting a 30% design. There was, from a design standpoint, the Medina Council had unanimous support for option 2, which was similar with your considerations for the design. And in terms of phase 1, they did approve some flexibility to work with Corcoran on addressing specifically biker safety along that corridor, which I believe was consistent with Councilmember Schultz's concern about, you know, making sure had a wide enough road through that section to accommodate that. So that being said, we would be moving forward with an option 2 design through the corridor while looking to address essentially an on-road biking trail with phase 1. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from council?
Thank you. Thank you, Kevin.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Now we'll move on to new business, which is item 10A and B, which is a COVID-19 preparedness plan and the council member resignation. At this time, we'll take public comment from anyone who wishes to weigh it in.
Thanks, Mayor. At this point, I don't have anyone raising their hand, but if you'd like to, again, you can press *9 or click on the participant button if you're viewing and click on the raise hand function. Give it just a moment here. Does look like someone, oh, I do have one person. I'm going to go ahead and you have your video on, so I'll go ahead and unmute you.
Perfect.
Navit?
Yep. So my name is Navnit Narayan. I live in 6672 Carriageway, Corcoran. And I just want to speak to the 10B resolution. I think you have an opening on the council and somebody from our neighborhood has given their nomination. So I just want to second his nomination. It's Manoj Thomas. I feel I've known Manoj for some time now, and he's very, and I think a lot of you are also aware of the work he does as a reserve police officer, but I've engaged with him on quite a few of other civic duty related issues. And I find him really committed, and I think he'll be a welcome addition to the council if he is nominated. So, yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so item 10A, which is a COVID-19 preparedness plan.
Just to clarify, we're done with public input.
Actually, there's one additional person who has raised their
Whoops.
hand.
Okay, back
Thank
up.
you. Manoj Thomas, if you want to go ahead, you should be unmuted now. Manoj, one more moment. It keeps on muting you back up. Give me just one more moment. Manoj, if you want to try unmuting yourself. There we go.
Is that good? Yeah, it keeps
We're
flipping me back to mute. I've
Sorry
no
about
idea
that.
what's happening. So again, just to clarify, you can make comments about 10B on now, or this was just for 10? Okay, good.
Yes.
I see the nod. Again, for the record, this is Manoj Thomas, starting at 6552 Carriageway. I'd like to start off thanking the council for this opportunity to raise my thoughts on this topic. I also want to thank my neighbors for calling in. It is definitely heartening to see their support. So I had reached out to the council with my intent to potentially serve, if you will allow me on the council. I talked to a couple of you. I talked to Tom, talked to John and Brad over the last week. I believe the population density and distribution in Corcoran has changed considerably over the last, since the last time the council seats were up for election. So the Hakamo corridor, especially has changed aggressively. As you know, that's pretty much all the planning commission and the council spends their time on, at least the big ticket items. So we have an opening on the council created by Brian leaving. While that is unfortunate, I also think that that gives the council an opportunity to hear, acknowledge, and potentially act on the comments made by some of my neighbors and residents in Ravinia. It's great to see that the council could get an opportunity to get a fresh perspective from a resident in the city's new corridors, potentially better community outreach. And I remember in my conversations with John, he mentioned that one of the toughest things a councilor has to do on the council is to take hard decisions and share that information with your neighbors, especially if the decisions are not popular. So living in this dense corridor, I believe I will be able to work on solutions working with the community and be an asset to the council. It's an exciting time for Corcoran with developments planned to improve the city. And I think that is going to be great. It's a great opportunity, especially when you balance that with the DNA of Corcoran. Corcoran has huge potential when it comes to these new business developments as the cities of Maple Grove and Plymouth kind of spill over into what Corcoran is today. And while also maintaining and enabling our existing establishments to thrive. I'd love to serve and be a catalyst on those initiatives. I thought I'd weigh in with my thoughts, before the council gets on to the 10B and takes your next course of action as you see fit. Thanks for the time.
Well, thank you, Manoj. Appreciate your input.
Thank you.
And your interest.
Sure.
Okay. Anybody else?
Not at this time.
Okay. All right. Now we will go to item 10A, which is a COVID-19 preparedness plan.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, I will present this. Originally, Jessica Christensen Buck was going to. She had a commitment to head out of town at 10 p.m., so she hung on as long as she could to jet out. So she was hoping for a moment to shine in front of the council. It just didn't happen. But in front of you tonight is the COVID-19 preparedness plan. We are required to adopt one by the 29th, just a couple days away from now. I'm not going to walk through it, but it really talks about when we open up, how we open up, and how we proceed forward. So right now we're in phase 3. As it reads, we're closing City Hall through phase 3, and phase 4, which we believe will happen pretty quickly. We would have a limited opening and then move from there. It does authorize myself to amend it as needed as information comes out. It's going to be tricky with public meetings. As of tonight, for example, even the community room, we probably could have had, I don't know, 8, 9 residents here. And we had, I think, 39 or something and 40. So this is going to be tricky navigating it, but we're asking you to adopt the plan as presented. We'll amend it as need be. But that's all I have, and happy to answer questions. I will say Jessica did an outstanding job pulling this together. It's a kind of a hybrid of several cities that fits Corcoran. We're all at the leadership level really proud of the document and its quality. So I want to highlight the hard work she's been doing as our EOC manager, as not a recreation coordinator anymore. She's done fantastic, and this is a really good document. So with that, asking for your approval.
Okay, any discussion or any questions from council?
I have a discussion point. Governor Walz just approved unilaterally the dispersion of the CARES Act money to cities in Minnesota based on population. You're going to need to document the actions that you did and the costs involved to get the money, which I think we've done a good job of it. I believe the oversight's going to be scant. It's going to be a huge waste of money, but we just got to make sure our ducks are in a row to be recipient of that, even if I'm against the program and I think it's abuse. Throw everything you can in, and it's a big chunk of money. Make sure that we at least get what we can out of it.
Yeah, I'll go over that in the
That was announced today.
Yep. I'll go
Oh,
over
sorry.
that in the update too. But
I didn't see that.
this is
I
really
won't say it
specific
then.
to our required opening plan.
Yeah, I just want, I'll explain my no vote then. Also, I don't think it's necessary. I hate when the governor tells us what to do, as if we wouldn't plan for ourselves. I'm going to vote no. I think it's unnecessary.
Are you talking about the preparedness plan?
Yeah,
Okay,
we're not as subjects.
yeah. I tend to agree with that, but I think I probably will vote. I will vote yes. But any
Clarify,
other discussion?
This is basically a formalization of all the stuff we've been having as
Exactly.
guidelines
Yeah.
internally.
I don't have no problem at all with it. If we're going to have to deal with this stuff, we may as well formalize it and codify it or document it. So, any other discussion? So you need a formal motion to accept the plan.
Yes,
I'll entertain a motion to accept the plan as presented.
I'll move. Tajewski.
Second from Anderson.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Thomas, aye. Anderson,
Aye.
Bodema,
Nay.
Dejewski,
Aye.
and Schultz.
Aye.
Great. And thank you. Thank you, staff, for putting the report together. It's a good job. Okay, item 10B, saddest one of the evening, our council member resignation, declaration of vacancy. So I guess we have to recognize that Brian is leaving us whether we like it or not. We don't have to accept your resignation, but I guess we do. And I guess I want to say from the outset that I'm sorry to see it go, Brian. I think you've done a great job on the council. You've really been conscientious and you really take the job seriously and bring a lot to the position. And I will be maybe not worse without you, but you certainly have brought a lot to it. And we hate to see you go.
Thanks. I've enjoyed my time.
So
I'd
what do
echo
we have to do formally to do this?
So, Mayor and Council, at the guidance of the city attorney, which I know Councilmember Bodema does not enjoy, he believes we do have to accept the resignation and then declare a vacancy is really
Here you go, Brian.
the main issue. So it'd be a motion to accept the vacancy or accept the resignation notice effective June 30th, 2020, and then declare a vacancy. That's the motion. And then it's up to the council if you want to talk about process after that.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to accept Brian's resignation effective 6/30.
So moved.
Declare vacancy.
And declare, can we do it in one motion?
Yes.
Okay. And declare vacancy. So moved, Anderson.
Should I second this?
Get your last one in, Brian. Do we have a formal second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay. Any discussion other than to say thank you very much, Brian, and we'll miss you.
Yep, thank you, Brian.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Thomas, aye. Anderson,
Aye.
Bodema,
Nay.
Schultz. You always got to be difficult. Schultz,
Nay.
Seriously doing this?
and I guess you'll have to vote, Brian.
I got to go with aye on this one.
Yeah, you don't have any choice. So it passes 3-2. These guys are a bunch of jokers, you know that. Okay, then the other subject we have now is to fill the vacancy. And I guess we'll speak to process, how we want to do that. Going into it, it's, we're going to have a 6-month period here. So it's not a long time. I don't favor going into a long selection process myself, but I'll do whatever the council would like to do. My candidate would be to appoint Brian Lothar to the position. He's expressed an interest. He's been involved in 3 of the city's comprehensive plans. He's on the Charter Commission. He's well aware of what's going on in the city. I think Manoj and the folks at Ravinia are spot on as far as the representation. I I wouldn't favor appointing someone who has no experience and hasn't been there before. I really invite Manoj to run for council. I would probably vote for him. I think he seems to have a lot of energy and obviously has created a lot of support for himself. But as far as appointing somebody today, I would very much I would go for Brian Lothar. Having said that, I guess the question is, do we go through a selection process, or do we just do an appointment? And the last time we went through a selection process, it's fine, we can do that. It's going to take a month or two to do it. We've only got 6 months to go, so I think it would take some time, and I don't think it's necessary, but it's not wrong to do it either. So I'm looking for the rest of the council to weigh in on how they want to do it. So we could start out with Alan. How do you feel about it, or what's your thoughts on it?
I haven't really talked to Brian. I've sat in a charter commission meeting where we talked about wards, and he ran the meeting very well. I would have no problem supporting him. My only concern is because of the land acquisition with regards to the well, any perceived connection to that. There is none, but there's maybe that perception out there, but I'm not in favor of a long drawn out process either, to be honest with you. I think we should just appoint somebody.
Okay. And Tom, what's your opinion?
I guess I agree. We don't need to make it a big, long, drawn-out process. This position would be up for election in the November election, so it is just serving through November through December.
They would serve through December 31st would be the term.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. No, it's
okay. John, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I share your sentiments. I would love to see the people of Ravinia more involved. We have a lot of needs, a lot of commissions. I think I would start there. We just went through this process. I think Brian was lost out to Tom in that initial phase. I think he'd be a good choice for the next 6 months. And we have an election where 4 seats are up, including my own, if I choose to run again. So there's plenty of time to pick what the next council is going to look like. I like Manoj too. I think he's a good guy, brings a lot to the table.
And I think one of the things that it does highlight is that we may want to have a discussion on wards going forward here at some point in time. I don't know if we want to do it this year or wait for the next council, but staff should be putting it on the agenda, certainly, probably for the next council, for next year, to look at it so that we do make sure we have representation and based on somewhat on population and on geographics of the city, so we don't get imbalanced. I guess I'll be unorthodox and I'll make a motion that we appoint Brian Lothar as Brian Dejewski's replacement, effective for appointment at the next council meeting.
I'll second.
Mr. Mayor, just for clarification on the motion. So we talked about this internally in case somebody did want to make a motion tonight, because it's happened in the past. And we would recommend it be effective July 1st. And then the oath would be taken at the meeting itself, but effective it would the person, a council member, immediately July 1st, and have all the things that come along with that.
Gotcha. Okay.
A massive salary of $200 a month or whatever it is.
So I'll take the friendly amendment or addition to my motion that it will be effective July 1st for appointment at the next council meeting. First.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Sorry. The concern I raised is that any concern we have to be worried about from a standpoint?
I think that at most, or at the extreme case, Brian would just abstain from any discussion or voting on the issue.
Mayor and council, maybe just to air that out, so just because we have an audience on as well, as far as where it's at. So the city of Corcoran has a purchase agreement with Brian and Jackie Lowe there for we're purchasing a few acres for a future well and treatment site. That was voted on months ago. And it's a purchase agreement that will have to come to council actually in July. But the next step is we've already agreed on price, everything. It's now whether it's viable to move forward with the final purchase. And that will be this decision point in July. And certainly there's no requirement for, well, we probably recommend recuse from that vote, but the decision to purchase on price and everything else is in the background. That's already happened. So just to air that out where that's at.
Okay,
I think
thank you.
I think it's a fair point too, Alan, just in general. One thing that we run into all the time is there's, in a small town, like everything we do, every vote we do impacts somebody. Like laying down the dust control. I live on a dirt road that impacted me. I mean, it's hard to do anything in this town without some perceived conflict of interest. Every vote seems to have them. So we have to be careful about whether it's a real conflict of interest and if there's nefarious action, or if it's just an action that impacts somebody. And we didn't get a good deal. He didn't get a high price. There was, like, if you look at it I think it's extremely fair to look at everything government does with the eye that you did. And nobody got a sweetheart deal in that deal. Nobody benefited extra or anything like that. So
Yeah, I totally understand that. I just wanted the point brought up and discussed.
I'm glad
so
you
it was
brought it
out
up.
there.
No, I think it's very very appropriate to make sure it's highlighted and everybody's aware of it. I think especially if somebody's being compensated directly, they clearly have to abstain from the conversation and from the voting. That's
sure.
But we're citizens of the community we live in, and unless we want people who are active in the community, and they're gonna have conflicts. So
right.
It just happens by its nature. Okay, any further discussion?
I would just say, I mean, I'm abstaining from the vote, obviously, but just encouraging Manoj to pursue that in November, to do that run and to get involved. I'm thrilled that there's that much energy and excitement around it, and I also wanted to thank Brian for surfacing and being willing to step into that role once again. So
super. Thanks, Brian. Okay, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Anderson?
Aye. Aye.
Bodema?
Aye.
Thomas, aye. And Schultz?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. I didn't ask you, Brian.
We just do have to get it. Yeah, thank you. Also, Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure if Councilman Jadowski has like an hour or two final presentation he wants to give to the council or anything. But it's up to you if he wants to say a few words. It's your meeting, Mr. Mayor, but it's been a long time, well, 3.5+ years.
More than welcome to.
It's been a pleasure to serve. As I said in my letter, it's been eye-opening, and I've learned a lot. I'm excited for where the city of Corcoran and the council is going. So I've been thrilled to learn more about the staff and how competent and excited they are about their jobs. You guys do a really good job, and from all works, from administrative to public works to public safety. So for those that ever watch this, City of Corcoran is in good hands. Thanks.
You're still going to be working here, though.
I will be still in the city, very much engaged. I actually wish I could continue to serve as someone who works in the city, but apparently I'm not able to. So.
Well, I appreciate having you on the council. We've learned a lot from you. You've given balance and you've given a voice to those people in your community.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I hope they're not forgotten.
They won't be.
No, for sure there won't be.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brian.
You're a good man.
Thanks, Brian. Okay, on to item 11A, the staff reports, active Corcoran planning applications. We've all gotten the sheets on that. Any comments or questions on that? Okay,
Is there-
then,
Is there any, I mean, we've all received a lot of emails on Eagle Brook. Is there anything you can talk about that? Have you heard from the applicant at all, or?
Mayor and Council, yes, we've talked a little bit here and there, mostly just in preparation of the Planning Commission meeting next Thursday, July 2nd, I believe. They'll give a brief kind of verbal update. I have not been sending any of the letters their way because they're directed to the city, but they will be in the packet that's going to go out tomorrow that they'll get. I verbally described some of the items. I know actually, I think Manoj reached out to staff from Eagle Brook, and I think they're coordinating some sort of virtual meeting or something to talk in advance of that meeting. So I think communication is going on, and of course the public hearing will be at the Planning Commission next week.
If they do have a virtual meeting, do you think we could get some type of information on that in case we wanted to join as in a listen only mode?
I'll ask.
Thank you.
I went over there and talked to him about what some of the structure of what the council can do and can't do, like, so we can collaborate. And, you know, there are certain limits on the powers of a city council when interacting with the church specifically. So our aim is to have conversations with them, between them and the church. And I think they're all adaptable to that. I don't know if the public should be aware, or maybe they don't, but we've gotten an enormous amount of emails from them specifically about the church and its impact on a bunch of different things. That's what Alan is referring to.
yeah, and I think it's important too that people get up to speed on what legally, what we can and can't restrict and what we can do. So I encourage all the council members to communicate with Brad on that and make sure you're informed on any decisions we make, because the last thing we want to do is get into an unnecessary, you know, legal battle or misrepresent our citizens or underrepresent them because we're not aware of what we can and can't do.
I would also encourage those in the community, like they're doing, to meet with the church. They've, in my discussions with them, they want to go out of their way to be a neighbor that is a good neighbor and wants to be aware of the needs of the community and do what they can to meet those needs.
Yeah.
So they are interested in being in discussion. They're not trying to force anything. They're trying to be a good applicant, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's been very much my experience too, Brian. I think I think John set the stage for that a lot to encourage the residents that have concerns with stating their concerns and trying to work with the church to make it a good project rather than a losing proposition for people. And I think it can be. I think it can be a great project, but you know, people have concerns, and rightfully so. It's a big campus and a big building, a lot of people. So okay. Okay, item 11B, which is a temporary site plan amendment for the stanchion bar.
Yep, Mayor and Council, just as required by your orders you gave me, I have to give you a report, and there is said report.
Thanks, Brad.
Thank you.
Okay. No action needed on that, right, Brad?
Correct.
Okay, then item 11C, the pandemic response update.
Matt, you want to go?
Sure. As many of you seen in the packet, the EOC managers played an important role so far in our planning measures and continuing to track resources and represent the city in some of the emergency management meetings and functions, including tracking expenses. So you saw some of that work in the preparedness plan in front of you tonight. So it's been a huge help, but we are doing well to stay organized, and I feel like we're in a pretty good spot. So recently the COVID curve has remained relatively flat, and the state is continuing to see new cases come in. To date, they've seen just over 33,700 cases. Medical facilities have been operating within capacity, but are actually seeing increased critical care pressure from recent acts of violence in other parts of their service area rather than COVID. Our city hasn't added any substantial COVID-related costs, and most of the expenses have remained relatively the same for about the past month. So right now we're still well positioned with our planning measures and our PPE inventory, and I'd be willing to answer any questions you might have after Brad shares anything he has to add to this.
Thanks, Matt. Just a couple of brief items. As mentioned before, we're in phase 3. We're going to be implementing that plan you just adopted earlier tonight. We're actually going to, Jessica Christensen Buck is creating a video training to walk people through it. So we're going to try to do that because we have people that work different shifts offsite, those types of things. And then as Councilmember Bodema did bring up, the governor did approve that funding to be released as agreed upon, not adopted by the legislature, but agreed upon by both chambers of the legislature, which would give Corcoran $439,309 for use. Now, Metro Cities and the League of Minnesota Cities is meeting tomorrow with the commission, the governor's kind of staff, to really answer the questions of what that can be used for. We have certainly had some ideas. It'd be very helpful for us actually from a technology standpoint if we're going to continue this for a while, which it seems like we are. We could use some investment in technology to make these meetings function a lot better. So that would be a great use of those funds, as well as some other options we have around City Hall. So we've had a COVID code for finance since nearly day one. I think we've done a bang up job of monitoring this and doing the best we can to be as useful with those funds. And we certainly want to make an impact, obviously. If we're going to get them, we have to use them wisely. And I know there's potentially some options for helping other groups in the community too, potentially. So the second I know more, I'll be bringing those to council. I don't want to rush on this. I want to be thoughtful. And it's up to the council what you want to do ultimately, but we'll bring you some options. So that's all I have.
Any questions?
Thank you. Thank you, guys, both of you.
Any other business? Anything else?
I don't think so.
Time for bed.
I think Brad's not talking to me anymore. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh no, we have 2020 council schedule.
So the biggest things, they're gonna be busy at least through July, but we have the draft 2021 budget that the staff is pulling together at night times and weekends, I think at this point. Our assessor proposal reviews, the City Hall remodel are 3 of the many things, including also appointing potentially Manoj to the Charter Commission. So lots of business happening in July. And you're halfway through the year. Congratulations.
That July 9th recognition for Eagle Scout. Brian, you worked on that quite a bit with him, didn't you?
Yep.
Thank you for that. He did a great job.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. He knocked it out of the park, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good.
Cool.
Okay, anything else?
I think the last motion should be Brian's.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Thomas, aye. Anderson,
Aye.
Bodema,
Aye.
Dejewski,
Aye.
and Schultz.
Aye.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Thanks, folks. Thanks, staff.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian.
Yep.
Take care.
Bye.